Hello my friends, it's the Game Boy Geek here, and today we go way back in time to the year 247 BC, where 6 powerful nations try to rule the ancient world. You'll be forming alliances, going to war, betraying your friends, bribing your enemies, feeding your armies, and recruiting heroes to building everlasting empire. Conqueror Final Conquest is for 3 to 6 players, takes 1 to 2 hours to play, for ages 14 and up, and published by Cat Ion Games. Now today we'll be doing a rule school where I'll teach you how to set up and play the game so that you don't have to read the rulebook yourself. Now I've placed timestamps below me in the description of this video, just in case you want to jump to a specific section of the rules. Without further ado, let's get started. Conqueror Final Conquest is for 3 to 6 players, where you'll be one of these different historical factions. And you'll be trying to control 5 territories with forts using your cavalry and infantry. When you control territories, you'll also be gaining currency, which will help you recruit powerful heroes for battle. Those heroes can help supplement you when you're trying to attack other territories owned by other opponents. But you'll also have some bonus missions that are secret that you'll get a lot of money if you're able to complete them, like conquering Asia Minor and control it for a round. You'll also have to deal with a round-specific chronicle that changes the rules of the game. And you'll strategically be selecting which territories to control by giving you more defense, double the defense, or even being able to recruit more units by having more food to feed them. So let's see if you've got what it takes to control 5 forts and hold them for a round. To set up, you're going to place the board in the middle of the table. And make sure at the top of the middle of the board, you're using the side that has the amount of players you're playing with, in this case, the 3 or 4 players. On the other side, it has the 5 or 6 player grand map. Players will then decide which faction they're going to play. Here are the different factions: Egypt, Rome, Gaul, Carthage, Persia, and Greece, shown by those different logos. Noting that Persia, that faction, can only be played with 5 or 6 players, and the Gaul faction is only played if you're playing with 6 players. Once your faction is selected, you'll get the bonus mission cards of that faction and the heroes cards. From the bonus missions, you'll shuffle these up and you'll draw one of these. We'll go over these later. The heroes cards you can look at any time. We'll talk about how these work later as well. You'll also select your player pieces. These are your supply. So you have your infantry and you have your cavalry. Now you want to make sure that nobody takes the white colored units, because those are going to be used for independent armies that we'll show you in just a bit. Once all players have done that, they will place their starting units into the spots shown on this player army table. For example, here for Egypt, we have 1 cavalry in Alexandria and 1 infantry in Thebes. So at this point in a 4-player game, those starting units might look something like this. Now after all players have placed their starting units, you'll then place them for the independent armies, which uses the white colored pieces. And for example, here in a 4-player game, you're going to look at this table, and depending on the amount of players, you'll figure out where to place these independent armies. For here, the first ones that we place are 2 cavalry units in Asia Minor, for example, but you do it for all the places and all the pieces shown on this table, depending on the amount of players you're playing with. Now off to the side of the board, you are going to place the Chronicles cards and all of the currency and the denominations of 1, 2, and 5. The object of the game is to hold any 5 forts and maintain control of them for 1 round. Now forts look like this and great forts look like this, and both of these count towards having 5 of those forts to win the game if you're able to hold them for a whole round. Now typically you'll hold a fort if you have at least one of your units on a spot that has a fort like this. However, your home territory is a little different, where even if you have no units here, you actually control this if this is your home faction. Unless, of course, someone else from another player has a unit there, then you no longer control your home unit there. But otherwise, either if you're there or if no one's there, you control this home unit. And this is a great fort, and this is a fort, and you just need any combination of 5 of these, hold them for 1 round to win the game. The game is played in clockwise order, with each player taking successive turns in that manner. Now to see who goes first, you'll be rolling dice to determine that. And the highest value will be the one that will be going first. Now on your turn, you're going to go through 2 successive phases before the next player's turn. You're going to go through a planning phase and then an action phase. Now this planning phase lasts for 1 minute. There is a timer. You'll flip it over at the beginning of that player's planning phase, and this will go. We'll tell you what happens when this minute runs out, but basically they have 1 minute to do any of it or all of these things. Number one, they're going to gain currency from the territory the players control. For example, they control this territory and it gives them a currency of 1, so they will get that from the supply, and they'll do that for every territory that they control. And we have another one here. So in this case, right off the bat, at the beginning, they'll get 2. Another thing you can do in the planning phase is to recruit units. This is from the quick guide that you can pass out to every player. This is at the bottom here. Here, if you have a fort, you can recruit 1 infantry unit here. And if you have a great fort, you can recruit either 2 infantry units or 1 cavalry unit. So we'll do that right here where this specific great fort is. However, right now we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 units. And you look at all the areas that you control, we'll see we have 1 food supply icon right here. Now at the top right of the board, there's a legend for all the different icons in the game. And over here, the food supply, it says if we have 1 of these areas controlled, we can have up to 6 units. So you can never have more than 6 if you only have 1 food supply controlled. Now we have 5, so we're good. Even if we had 6, we were good, but we could not put a 7th or more unless we controlled a second territory that had one of these logos on them, like this one. Also, if ever in the game, let's say we controlled this, now we can actually have up to 8 using that legend in the upper right. However, if we lose control of this, we must now make sure we don't have more units than we can withstand with our food supply. So this is sort of a thing that needs to be kept track of as you're adding or subtracting units from the board. And for convenience, that chart is also on the bottom of that quick guide. Another thing you can do in this phase is to purchase one of your hero cards. Now it shows you the price at the bottom right, that's the currency you need to spend. And you can look at these cards and know, and we're gonna go over what some of these do and how they work in just a moment. But in order to be able to use these cards and have them in your hand to use them, you need to first purchase them during this planning phase. And you're also thinking of your strategy during this planning phase. Now remember, it's only a minute long, so if this ever runs out, any of the opponents can bribe some of your units. Now, you can't have units bribed out of your home territory, but any other territory you control, they can be bribed. Now, to bribe them, the player bribing must spend currency equal to the current strength. Now, let's talk about strength. Infantry are strengths of 1. So in here, there's a total of 2. Another player would need to spend 2 currency in order to basically bribe these out. And if they do that, they simply would take these. This would go back to that player's supply, and they would essentially replace them with the same units from their supply off the map right there. So it'd be like something like this if they had spent 2 currency. But again, it's only if this timer runs out can they do that, and it's a free-for-all. It can only happen once per turn like this. So if 2 players wanted to try to bribe, whoever said it first is able to do that. Again, each of these were 1. If they were cavalry, each cavalry is 2. After the planning phase is over, that same player is going to take their action phase before it goes to the next player. And during the action phase, they're basically, all of their units are going to be able to take 1 action. And it's either going to be move or attack. Now, if you want to move, you will take your unit and you'll move it to an adjacent spot, meaning one that is next to it by one of these lines. And after you move it, that unit cannot be used again. So you place it on its side to let yourself know that that movement is done for that unit. Now, you can only move into a place if it's controlled by you or it's empty. You cannot move into areas that have other players' units on them or the independent units. Now, we told you that each unit can either move or attack. We just showed you moving, but let's say we wanted to attack. There's 2 different types of attacks. You can either attack another player or you can attack the independent armies, which we'll show you later. Those are the white pieces on the board. Now, to attack, you must have units adjacent to a territory that has an opponent's pieces there, if that's the type of thing you're doing, meaning attacking an opponent's territory. Now, you'll choose any number of available units to attack, provided that they attack the same territory. Now, this one is not available because it already moved, but we could use one of these or both of these. In this case, let's just say we're using both. Now, the battle is going to be won by whoever has the total highest cumulative strength at the end, but let's go about the different ways that strength is added up throughout this battle. First, let's look at the preliminary strength. The attackers, we have 2 single infantries. Those have 1 strength each, so the attackers add 2. Here we have an infantry and a cavalry. Cavalry is always 2, infantry is always 1, so they're at a 3 by default. 2 to 3, attacker, defender. Then we look at a defensive bonus. The defense always gets a +1, so they have now gone from a 3 to a 4. The next thing is looking at defensive bonuses. Now, the defender always gets a +1, so they are now have gone from a 3 to a 4. But in this case, they're in a great fort, so they get a total of +2 defense right now. And if they're in their home territory, instead of getting the +2, you actually get a +4. So here on the bottom of the quick guide, it shows that defenders get +1, defenders of large forts get +2, and defenders of home territories get +4. Next, the attacker would decide if they want to use any hero cards that they've already purchased. This would have to have been purchased previously, have this in their hand. If they want to, they place it face down so the other player can't see it. Then the defender can decide if they want to play one or not. Once that's done, the players will flip them over. If they played them, it actually has a strength. In this case, it adds +1, and then it also has some special abilities that you'll just do what the card says. So in this case, we could have prevented one of their units using that card. Let's say we prevented the cavalry, so now they're at a strength of 1, and then they were defender, so 2. And we were at 2 plus the +1 from Cleopatra, so we are at a 3. Then each player will roll the dice. Now here we have 2, 3, 4, and we had the 1 from Cleopatra, so we had 5. Now they had 1, and then 1 for being the defender, so that's 2, 3, 4. This one was disengaged by this card. So they're at 4, we're at 5, so the attacker won 5-4. You take the difference of that, which is just 1, and they would lose that amount. Now in this case, 1 is just an infantry, so they would just take this back into their supply. Now any units that were not removed this way must retreat. Now when retreating, you must retreat to an adjacent spot that's either empty or controlled by yourself, like that. And if there are no adjacent territories that they can legally retreat to, then that unit is removed from the board and placed back in that player's supply. Now, the attackers who won must move their attacking units into that territory that they won, and they may leave 1 unit behind if they want to. Now, if you attack another player and you win, your victory will result in, first of all, 1 currency. And the victorious units also get an extra move, and you can attack an adjacent territory from the new territory that you're in. So we could now attack here if we wanted to, but after that ends, we would place them on their side, showing that they are done for the round. And if we used an extra move instead of attacking, we then would also put them on their side to let them know that they're done for the round. Now, if the attacker lost, they would keep their territory that they're in, but they would lose units equal to the difference of the total strength. In this case, after everything happened, the difference was 2, so they would lose both of these units put back into their supply. And again, if they were going to lose 2, they could lose 2 of the infantry, or if there was a cavalry there, they could have lost just a single cavalry in that regard. And if the battle ends in a draw, nothing changes except the attacking units can no longer take any action this turn, so they'd be flipped over. Now we were just talking about attacking opponents. Now the white figures are the independent armies that are there at the beginning of the game. Now in order to attack them, you just need to have superior force. So these are 2 cavalry, so it's 2 plus 2 is 4, plus they're at a great fort, so that's 2 more, so they have 6. We have 2, 4, 6, 7, we have more. So we could move into here if we wanted to, and these units would just get removed from the game, and you do not get any of the victory things that you would get from defeating an opponent, like the currency and things like that. Now you can use hero cards against independent armies, but you're usually best off using these against opponents. And when you move in like this against those independent armies, these units are done for the turn. They cannot move or attack again. Now players can choose to end their turn at any time or when all their units have acted. Then it would go to the next player's turn. Now, if during the action phase, if someone makes a move and then they're sitting and thinking for a while, you can start that 1-minute timer again. If it runs out even during the action phase, you can bribe their units just like you did in the planning phase. For example, the Age of Heroes, all hero cards purchased this round cost 2 currency less than the original price. Now this stays for the entire round, so this will stay out for everybody's turn that round, and then a new one will come out at the beginning of the next round, and you just do what the cards say. Now if you remember, each player drew a bonus mission at the beginning of the game, and it's a secret mission, and they can essentially do this. So if, in this case, they conquer Asia Minor and control it for 1 round, you present this card upon the conquest, and you collect the prize of 6 currency. Then you can draw another card from your bonus mission and try to work on that one. If you finished all 3 of them, you don't get any extra bonus. Now a couple more notes on movement. If you're on a border, you can move into the sea area like this, and now you're considered adjacent to anything that has a border or sea line. So you could go here on your next movement, you could go to this next sea area that's next to it, or since you're considered in this area, you can go to any of the spots that are adjacent to this on your next movement. And also, the Danube River it's connecting this region here all the way through to here as well. So you can pretty much move on the map and go to these different spots from those different areas. Now bridges help this sort of connect. So if you're here, you're also essentially right here, which also means that you can go here on your next turn, with one movement as well. That's pretty much how you play. Again, you need to control 5 territories with forts and keep them for one full round to win the game. Now this game is already published, which means you can order it from the publisher now. There's a link in the description of this video that will bring you right to the publisher's website where you can not only purchase the game, but you can also find the 2-player specific rulebook along with an FAQ. Well, I hope this helped you dive right into Conqueror Final Conquest and get to the fun quicker than you normally would if you had to read the rulebook yourself. Now, if you have further questions about the rules, I've placed a link below me in the description of this video, and that's the best place to ask them, since not only will I be notified, but so will the publisher.